Can you see the presentation?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay.
Akansha ji, you can start.
Yeah, thank you so much. And good evening, everyone. I'm Akanksha, and I'm working as a global coordinator with this beautiful initiative to phase out fossil fuel called Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty Initiative. And up till now, as an initiative, we have uh, almost got 18 countries who are participating. And in this recent COP, we actually announced that we are going to have a first international conference to negotiate on treaty text. But I have a lot to say about this initiative, but today we are discussing about my topic, which is towards feminist just transition, a pathway to inclusive climate action. And first of all, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity again to present. And my apologies because last week I was stuck in Colombo because of that cyclone Ditwa and couldn't join. And this topic of research is very dear to me and is basically a summary of what I have learned in my academic and professional journey up till now. So can we go to next slide? Yeah. So first of the question arises, why this topic? And so whenever we talk about climate change, we often focus on discussion on rising temperatures, extreme weather, but we forget the main crux behind the all this changing climatic trends, that is fossil fuel, which is approximately responsible for about 85% of global emissions. So as we are moving forward in those all climate negotiations, it has become evident now that we need to move beyond fossil fuels. But the key question is, how do we make this transition not only sustainable, but also just, inclusive, peaceful? Because even as energy source change, old injustice remain the same. Same human right violations, exclusion of women, exploitation of indigenous communities. So renewable energy gas lead to rising demand for critical minerals to support this transition, but that is already fueling land grabs, environmental destruction, violence. And we have instances from Indonesia to Latin America, Pakistan, and there's a lithium triangle, which Chile, Argentina, and Bolivia. We have seen that in 2020, over half of the attacks on environmental defenders happened in Colombia, Mexico, and Philippines, were largely linked to the mining of these critical minerals. So the problem is our energy systems, which is not only technical, they come from broader economic and social structures we live in, which is rooted in systems shaped by patriarchy, racism, colonialism, militarism. So if we don't transform these structures, these economic and social structures, and we just focus on the technical problem, then we risk replacing big oil with big renewables. So the problem will be there always. So the vision is to redefine the just transition with feminine values, which reminds us that moving away from fossil fuel is not enough. We must rethink how we use resources, who makes decisions, and how we care for people and planet. Next slide. So before moving forward, we need to understand the difference, the very fine difference between feminism and what is gender responsive. So when we say feminist just transition, it's often misunderstood as something only of women, for women, by women, but it goes far beyond simply just adding women into existing systems. So there are policies which advocate for representation of women in economic sectors, which this paper consider a gender responsive strategy and not feminist. So we need to understand that there are masculine and feminine traits, nothing superior over other, but complementary to each other. So we can say that masculine traits can be action oriented, confidence, independence, competitiveness. And this is not I'm saying, there's a literature which is there which is saying this. And feminine traits are linked to care, kindness, gentleness, emotional understanding. So these ideas also appear in our traditions. For example, in Hinduism, we usually say that Shiva represents order, while Shakti is the dynamic feminine power that brings life. So together, these perspectives shows that societies have always sought a balance between this strength and compassion. So in our societies too, earlier masculine traits were helpful. This is my thought that earlier masculine traits were helpful to drive exploration and innovation. We needed inventions. We were building societies. But today, that similar strength has evolved into hyper masculinity, greed, profit driven systems, exploitative capitalism. So, when we say ati har cheez ki buri hoti hai, hence, now to balance this chaos in our economic, social, and environmental sphere, we urgently need more feminine energy to offer care, collaboration, and empathy. Hence, a feminist just transition offers a way forward. It brings attention to people, relationships, well being, reminding us that climate action is not only about technology, also about justice. Side change. Can you give me a minute, my baby? Just a minute. Yeah, sorry. So the study is actually talking about three objectives. One is to define the framework and core values of feminist just transition, to define some values which should frame the structure of this feminist just transition. Then we talk about some examples where this feminist leadership has already given some equitable and sustainable energy solution. There are examples from Africa, with which I can prove that how feminist just transition can be a better solution to fix our future. And then to propose some actionable policy recommendations for this feminist just transition principles, which can be collaborated and integrated into this global energy governance. Next slide. So if we talk about methodology, the paper will largely be based on secondary research. It uses information from research papers, academic journals, reports, blogs, newspaper article, podcast, to understand the idea of feminist just transition. And along with this, if the time and resources permit, I'm trying to get some first-hand information from some feminist activists and leaders, but this is the end of the year, so it depends. If I get it, then there will be some primary research also. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, I'll not take much time, but just to give you an idea that like to share the outcomes of the first objective, that is the core values of feminist just transition. The first one is inclusivity, which means far more than just having diverse people in the room. It means ensuring meaningful and equal participation across gender, race, class, caste, ethnicity, age, disability, sexuality, and other identities. So this is not just limited to women participation. Then comes decentralized and distributive power. This value emphasizes on shifting power away from highly centralized institutions towards communities and local governance system. This supports community-led, context-specific energy solutions. Then comes ecological stewardship, an important value that reminds us that planet is not an endless resource bank, but a living system that we are entrusted to care for. This value frames the energy transition as a relational responsibility, calling for non-extractive, regenerative, and reciprocal practices. Then comes circularity, circular resource justice, which emphasizes recycling, reuse, and responsible management, which is highly needed in our coming times because we are dealing with solar energy and some critical minerals, and there will be huge lots of waste. So this value insists on transition. Just come here. So this value insists that transition cannot create new forms of extraction, waste, and environmental justice. Then is the creation of care-centered economy, one that shifts prioritize from profit and productivity, and we need to take care of our health and well-being. COVID is such a big reaction that how we need to prioritize our health and not profit and productivity. And then comes a critical value of feminist just transition, which is the energy consumption. We cannot achieve everything in our future if we are increasing our consumption. So we need to degrowth, only then we can talk about our energy supply. So this is the crux of feminist just transition values. We can go to next slide. So for the next steps, I'll be focusing on two of the remaining objectives and to finalize the first objective. One of them is to explore real life examples of feminist leadership. As I have shared that there is an organization, Shine Collab. So it's a director, Mela Chiponda. So I'm trying to get her first-hand views on this topic. So that will be good. And also trying to get some thoughts from feminist leaders from WILF. So, of course, there are a few more inspiring leaders I'll be bringing into this conversation. So, yeah, and secondly, also developing 5 to 6 concrete policy recommendations that can help us truly define feminism as transition. Thank you. And sorry for all the disturbance.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I may now invite a chair for her remarks.
Hello. Akanksha, you are talking about the feminine energy, but those who are in just transition, they are the corporate interest and they are also using child labor. A lot of violation of people's rights is happening. So for that, I think those who are most powerless, how are they going? So I think we will have to work with all people in power also, and also bottom-up approach, people's participation, and also more awareness about this so-called just transition, because even about the solar energy, you see, if you're using so much of metal, and for that mining also child labor has been used. So we need much more, first of all, capacity building and empowerment of women. Yes, that's important, but that won't be adequate because they are not in the decision-making bodies. So that also you need to focus, that the mass of women, even if you have, like we saw in Sindhudurg, there were 2 lakh people in the demonstration against SEZ, no, in Raigad district. But it is along with that, when we reached out to even decision makers, then only it was changed. So you have to mobilize with identify parliamentarians, and at a subnational level, the legislative assembly members and the politicians and governance, sensitization of the bureaucrats and also industry, because industry has accountability. So the question of accountability system is very important, no? And Ashaji's presentation, in her testimony, because she has been directly involved in this kind of movements for more than 40 years. So only feminine energy can't. You may have wisdom, but do you have power? No.
So, what do you recommend, ma'am? So in the values itself, it should be that the accountability should be there, or the
Everything has to
policy
be there
recommendation.
simultaneously. You have to have a bottom-up, lateral, as well as reaching out to the top. No? All civil society organizations have to come together. And because otherwise, women are currently brutalized. Every time they enter the forest, the forest officials would rape them, or they would call them criminal and thief. That is the existing scenario, not only in India. I was in Bali, where all children, youth from Asia and Pacific countries were there. Everywhere, same is the scenario. Whether it is a climate action program, or whether it is a climate change or a just transition program, people's resources are being taken away. And when they fight against it, there is brutal violence used by the military, paramilitary, and the local police. So we need much more broader support and also questioning through research. So it is not only mobilization backed by solid research and evidence-based policies, as they did in the Kandamal case, or even they did in Sri Lankan case. Very, very, very well-documented evidences they brought in. Or Colombia, 1,000 women signed the peace treaty. We don't want this continuous war. No? So that level of mobilization is required. Yeah. Otherwise, it becomes romantic, no? That, yes, we know that women would not resort to that kind of a cruel way of extraction of mineral. But do they have power?
Yeah. So it should be reflected in the policy recommendations.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
policy recommendations. Correct. No, your exposition of the problem is excellent. But when it comes to recommendations, that we need a broader support and all both, like it has to be backed by research, documentation, advocacy, mobilization at the ground level, and also the globalizing the issue. So localizing local struggle, if it is globalized, then like Sri Lanka, what happened, violation happened at a local level, but it was brought in the platform of UNHRC, Parliament, European Parliament, everywhere the issues of abuse of children by the peacekeepers was brought in, no? And even some of the NGOs such as Oxfam or Bread for the World and this thing, Children's Organized, Save the Children, all of them were involved, no? Yeah. So both the local and global initiatives.
Okay. Yeah.
Very good work.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your remarks. Dale G, are you going to present your presentation today?
Yours? Whose presentation?
I think so. We have
Acha,
from Dale. Yeah.
Dale's one. Okay.
I have presented last week, right?
Yes, yeah, because your name is there.
Yes, ma'am. I was the third one to present.
Yes. 11
Okay.
presentations have already taken place. They are Sukhvinder Multani, Ms. Shrishti Sharma, Ms. Dale Fernandez, Ms. S. Gayatri, Ms. Ruchira Dolai, Ms. Chetna V, Ms. Faiza Afreen, Ms. Kaveri Gopakumar, Ms. Anjali Gurjar, Ms. Vaibhavi Dubey, Ms. Anandita Sarkar. So 11 presentations are there. Today, this one was 12th by, by Akanksha Shankar.
So, ma'am, now I think so we can move to the closing remarks. And now
Yeah.
I invite you to deliver the closing remarks for this fellowship.
So I think I found all the 7 days of presentation by the resource persons very rounded, and each one complemented the other. It enhanced our understanding of feminist foreign policy with specific focus on WPS, regional action plan, national action plan, and today we also had a discussion on local action plan. And it also highlighted the accountability of the state and also non-state actors, also UN peacekeeping forces, and the women's movement, because there have been liberal feminists and neoliberal feminists who have supported brutal violence and carnage in Gaza. And we have also seen the double standards which are prevailing according to the political moorings of the decision makers. And that's why the universal thumb rule of human rights, that there's and some of the codes which were created after the Second World War, they have also been grossly violated, bombing. It's a very traditional war, which is now again emerging, and where the ferocity is so high that when you don't even leave hospitals or shelter homes or children's homes, they have also been bombed, and it's aided by a highly sophisticated technology, because when you have a drone and when you have a very automated machines and radars and all, there is nothing accident. Nothing is accidental. Everything is premeditated. Everything is engineered. Everything is very well planned attack to demoralize, humiliate, and also the kind of torture which was. It has now taken a much more gory form, mainly because of the videography and the damage which is done for humiliating people, as we saw in Abu Ghraib. So I won't even say that it is women versus men. Even powerless men, prisoners of war, children, person with disability, elderly people, all of them can be victim of this militarized masculinity. And I think that's what we try to deconstruct in this course. And that's why I express my heartfelt thanks to all the resource persons, all of you who actively took part in the debates and discussions. And all the mind-blowing presentations that you have made, 12 of you have made. And also the IMPRI team, which has done hard work for this course. And now let us wait for our event outcome report and anthology. Thank you. Over to Sam.
Thank you, ma'am. With this, I would like to proceed to formal vote of thanks. As we conclude the final day of Feminist Foreign Policy Cohort 2, theme Women, Peace and Security, I, Sana Ansari, on behalf of IMPRI Center for International Relations and Strategic Studies and IMPRI Gender Impact Studies Center, extend my heartfelt gratitude. We sincerely thank our chair, Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, and expert for today's session, Professor Asha Hans ji, for the invaluable contribution and for engaging us in a powerful discussion. We sincerely thank all our participants for presenting their work and actively engaging in the deliberations. We also extend a heartfelt gratitude to all our experts for guiding us throughout a powerful, insightful discussion throughout this fellowship. A session recording and resources will be shared via email. A video recording of today's session will be available for reference, and we look forward to seeing you on next cohort or at future IMPRI events and programs. If you're following our work by watching it on YouTube, listening via podcast, or reading our publication, we truly appreciate your engagement and support. Once again, thank you all for being part of this initiative. Wishing you a great evening ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sana, for sailing us through and very seamless way in which you conducted and moderated the whole sessions and also asked very important questions to the specialists. Thank you. Priyanka, thank you very much for the hard work that you have done right from the beginning, right from the conceptualization stage. And now your work will even increase with event outcome report and anthology. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for guiding us all throughout.